Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes and I am delighted that you can be with us today. Our guest today is another in a wonderful series of powerful guest speakers, women who have been through significant, often very negative experiences and have triumphed over all that life has thrown at them and thrown it back at life. Tracy Doyle is a nationally recognized entrepreneur, an emotional wellness advocate, and author of a terrific book called Life Storms, Finding Your Clear Sky. It's a great book. I never get to finish it in time for this, but it's a beautiful book. Her journey from a childhood shaped by trauma and instability to becoming an award-winning business leader, a resilience coach, is a testament to the power of reinvention and healing and ultimately tremendous personal growth. After building a multi-million-dollar medical communications company and after earning regional accolades like the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, Tracy Doyle faced a breaking point. She hit what she describes as a true emotional burnout. And many people listening know kind of what that feels like. But this personal crisis became the catalyst for Tracy's transformation and the creation of the Aurora Method, which is a practical, psychology-informed and a mindfulness-based framework helping professional women to overcome burnout, reshape limiting beliefs, and reconnect with themselves and others at a deeper, a broader, and just a better level. Through her book, Life Storms, and also master classes and an 8-week course, Tracy empowers professional women to break free from the patterns that have been keeping them stuck so they can lead their lives with calm, clarity, and confidence, reminding them that no matter how turbulent their lives may now feel, clear skies are always within reach, always. Oh, Tracy, welcome. I'm delighted to have you with us today.
Well, thank you so much. I am absolutely thrilled to be here. And everything you just said is exactly in my sentiment, in my heart, because, life throws us so many curves, right? And we have so many different experiences. And as we get to a certain point in age, we're at that turning point. Do we just give up and say, that's it? Or do we make a decision to really embrace it and take it on fully? And, in my story, I had some significant experiences when I was younger that really shaped me. And, those experiences, really what I learned over the years was that they just really shaped the way I thought and the way I acted and the way I just lived my life. But that's to your point that you made before. It just took me to a breaking point. And when I hit that breaking point, I always remember a story of when my mom used to smoke and I used to smoke years ago. And I remember him saying, your first half of your life looks wonderful, Tracy, but what do you want the second half to look like? And when I hit that breaking point, it reminded me of that same conversation. And that's when I made a decision to make some changes.
Well, talk about that. What did it feel like when you felt, I can't go any farther?
That's such a great question, because for me, when I was struggling with the burnout, I was struggling with it for years because, what I should have said before was, my mom was mentally ill and, I've assumed becoming a caretaker and a parent at the age of 10, and she had married when I was 7.
Ooh.
So, having married when I was 7, they had 2 kids together, my half siblings, my sister and brother. And I was really faced with taking care of them because my stepdad sadly had very, very significant addiction. And when he married my mom, he was essentially declining. And, what did she know? She didn't know any better. And she really just couldn't handle it. So really that was a foundational shape for me. But sadly, he passed away 4 years into their marriage from his addiction, and it was pretty traumatic. His demise, actually. And and so I really just found school as my respite. So, overachieving became my way out of poverty. It became my way, right? Overdoing, if you will. And so, for me, what it felt like was when I got into my 20s, my grandmother, who had taken care of my mom and us most of our lives, wanted me to assume that responsibility in my mid 20s. So I assumed that responsibility. Then my sister started having kids. She was like my mom. I assumed responsibility for them. So I was like an Insta mom. I was, taking caretaker for my mom. Then I had my own relationship, my own home,
But you're only
and
in
my
your
career.
20s.
Yeah, and I had my career. So what burnout starts to feel like is stress and overwhelm. And then what starts to happen, to answer your question, is the next place you start to feel yourself at is conflict. You're like, all of a sudden you just feel like, doesn't anyone see what I do? Don't they understand? And you just feel like you're bumping heads and you're at odds.
Yeah.
And then from there, where it goes, as you start to decline into the burnout, I don't want to say decline, go deeper into the burnout. What happens is you start to feel, as you get to that breaking point where you just can't handle one more thing. Now, for some of us, we implode, right? So we take it in and we swallow it and we swallow it, and we can't sleep and we're anxious. And some women will start drinking. They'll use drugs. In other cases, we explode, which was me, where, I felt like no matter what someone asked me to do, how little it was, I would just explode. Like it was so bad. I'd feel shame for the way I reacted.
Yeah.
But then that took me to the breaking point. So here's what the breaking point was like, because I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was actually December 21st of 1999. It's around the holidays. I'm feeling isolated and alone. I'm getting ready for work. I get a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and my eyes were hollow, my spirit's dim, and I didn't even recognize myself because I just looked so empty. And inside my head, the fight starts inside my head, and I whisper to myself, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done taking care of my mentally ill mom. I'm done being responsible for my sister's kids. And now I'm a senior director at work. So I'm done being stretched in every single direction. I'm done being the fixer, and then it was just like, I'm done fighting with everyone. I'm done. And then I thought, if I just got good and drunk, maybe I would crash the car. And burnout takes us to suicide. And that's where it took me. And I'm like, maybe if I crash the car, yeah, no one would know that I did this on purpose, because I was everyone for everybody, and and that's where my thinking went. But later that night, because I had gone through with this, I was jolted awake by someone knocking on my car window, and they're, yelling like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?"
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm facing oncoming traffic. I get a little emotional. I was a hair away from a head-on collision,
Oh.
with a young couple, and I'm just like, what have I done? Because I did it. And, and in that moment, I just was like, how did I get so lost? And how do I get my life back? And, and now the next day, when I really realized what could have happened, I'm walking to a school meeting because I have responsibility for my sister's kids, and I had a school meeting. I didn't have my car, and I'm crying and I'm raising my hands to God, and I'm like, like I want to live again, because the realization of that was like my head and my heart were fighting. My head was like scolding me, Tracy, how could you do such a thing? You could have killed two people. But my heart was like, Tracy, you're still here, And so that moment when I yelled out, it was really when I got my first real lesson, which is, I grew up believing I had to sacrifice myself for my family, for my job, for my relationships. I mean, you name it. And I realized then that sacrifice isn't about abandoning yourself. It's about putting yourself first while you're managing it all. And it was just
Right.
that
Right.
realization.
Right.
And that's really for me at that moment was when I said to myself, like, I need help, and I had to
Mhm.
be vulnerable. And so over the course of what felt like 10 years, because I had to go, I went to, I tried out, therapy and, they put me on medication for depression, for my trauma. As I was working through that, over the course of 10 years, what I realized was that, as I said in my opening, that it wasn't, my mom or my job or anyone breaking me. It was really my own beliefs that did it. And
Mhm.
and I just grew up, having been born, as a teenage pregnancy from my, with my mom not knowing my dad. I grew up always believing I didn't belong. And so I've had this belief that if I just do everything for everyone and I could do 110% of everything, then maybe I would, right? And then when I learned
Yes.
how to reshape that, right, that's when I found my way back. I had to reshape that belief as well as a couple of other beliefs. And I found my way back to myself, to my life and my voice and speaking my truth and my needs and ultimately back to the people who I love. And that is what it felt like. It was a very deep, deep place, but then getting out of it was equally as as deep as I went there, I rose out higher because of
Wow.
those realizations.
Yes. That which does not kill you makes you stronger.
It does. It does. And when we recognize what's driving us, which I never, those beliefs are unconscious. You don't really, it's like I always say to people now that I work with women, we're all wounded in our own way because we've all had experiences. It could be critical parents, it could be, a critical teacher. You know what I mean? It can be bullies on the playground, it could be kids at school taunting you. However we internalize it, if it's traumatic to us, we create a belief associated with that wound. And then it drives us, and it drove me like a bus all the way to burnout.
And for women, those experiences tend to be much more hurtful, much more damaging. We internalize them in ways that men very often don't do. They just say, "Well, it's not me. I'm fine," or whatever. And that's not necessarily a better way than women handle them, but it's a different way. Women tend to take them internally and to live them in a way. So, so we have to overcome more perhaps than men do. Um,
I have found, interestingly, I have found that we seem to internalize our wounds, men and women, in the same way, which leads us, I always point to my forehead, which leads us to two core limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy. Now, for us, women, I'm not good enough takes us to proving our worth. We sacrifice ourselves. We're people pleasers. We never say no. We do and do and do. Now, guys, they might have I'm not good enough, but they handle it in a different way than we do.
right,
I think
right.
what I found is that universal truth that we're all wounded. We all internalize it the same way, but how we put it out to the world is a little different.
I think
And
that's
and
right.
for yeah, and for us, there's so much we have to unpack, especially with the people pleasing and the self-sacrificing, because we abandon ourselves.
Yes, and we demand a lot of ourselves,
Hmm.
which is what you were doing. You had to take care of all your whole family, and you had to do all this work. You had to do everything until you just couldn't anymore.
Exactly. And that's what I think as women, that is what we do.
Hmm.
And I've coached many women and it's the same, and mine is a trauma ridden story, but I've coached so many women that they're like, "Oh, I don't have your trauma," but they've internalized their experiences the same way and we
Hmm.
end up in the same place.
Yes,
And,
yes,
and so like I said, we either implode on the inside where we abandon ourselves to the point of just, disconnecting from everyone, or we explode, which is we just do and do and do more. And then we're snapping and we're frustrated and we're pushing people away. And we don't even recognize that we're doing that. But no matter what side we're on, implode or explode, we feel alone and we feel isolated. And when we can, like I said, when we can recognize what's driving that, and for me, I created a framework because I had, as I said, over 10 years, I had gotten a lot of help. And what I found was therapy helps and self-help books help and podcasts help. Like, I mean, all these things help. Body work, going for massages and all those things helped me, but they were in isolation. And so what I was finding was I had my breaking point. I went to therapy, I got meds, I got help. And within like a year and a half, 2 years, I was feeling better. Then I start my business and it came back. And the reactions came back and the abandoning came back. And it was as if I was abandoning myself and avoiding myself, that relationship with myself. And that is when I opened up to a friend of mine who had also burned out. And she, started talking to me about, because I was reading different self-help books. So I went back to some stuff I loved. And I was reading Don Miguel Ruiz. I don't know if you know his book, The Four Agreements. It's an oldie. But what it talks
it is an oldie. That's true.
What it talks about is how fear creates negative behavior. So I'm like, okay, I need help for fear, and I'm telling my friend about it because one of my favorite books is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And Susan Jefferson, her book always says, have the courage to be vulnerable with another woman. So now I'm like, okay, I'm on this burnout recovery. I'm going to do this. My one friend, what she said was, she said, what keeps us stuck is our self-centered thinking and fear. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? So she had learned a tool, and she had learned it from someone who was in a 12-step program. And what this tool did, though, like I have a psychology and counseling background, it's asking you to look at your life. Like, so who hurt you, or who are you angry with? How did it affect you? Or what did they do? How did it affect you? But then it asks you, how did you respond to it? Right? And now it's like, what? And it wasn't a blame thing. It was just really looking at, so in my experience, like with my mom and some of the experiences I had, I would hide in the closet, right? So I would disengage. In other cases, with being the caretaker, I would race kids on the schoolyard. And if they didn't give me their lunch if I won, then I would fight them. So I was a fighter, right? So I started to see things that I did, but I then started to see patterns of how these things played out. And the other part of the tool asks you to look at, were you dishonest? Were you selfish? And now anyone with burnout is going to say, how dare you call me selfish? So I said to my friend, like, how dare you? She said, no. Selfishness, self-centeredness is like a city of limitation, right? You can't get out of it and no one can get in. And so she said, but look at it another way. Take the word self. What are you absorbed with? Are you absorbed with pity? Are you absorbed with, avoidance? Are you, and now I was like, that's interesting. So I'm book smart. So I start looking up all these self-centered traits and I make a list. And I'm like, wow, I'm a lot of that. Like, I had gotten out of poverty. I became self-important. So I would get very indignant, especially if I was ridden with fear. And all of a sudden, what Don Miguel Ruiz was talking about just made sense. And I was like, wow. So when I see the impact of what I do, like self-reliance, because I was a caretaker at a young age, I was very self-reliant in business. What does that say to other people? If I say I'll do it myself, it says, I don't need you, or you're not good enough. Right. And so now, why is no one helping me? Because I'm doing everything myself and I'm absorbed with doing it myself. And so when she helped me see those things, that's when the mindfulness approach made sense, because it's like, that is what I need to remove from my thinking. And so, it's like I'm releasing self-reliance and I'm open and receptive to accepting help. and then I affirm it. I'm accepting help. And it was like very simple technique that therapy had told me about, but I didn't know how to make it personal. Like, so no one showed me how, they just told me what to do. And so that's really what the impetus was for the book, because the more and more I started to like recognize things and change them, the more I saw how I was able to express myself better. I was able to get along with people better. Most importantly, get my needs met and the support I needed, because I could articulate it in a way that was not, I wasn't holding it all in anymore and just thinking I had to do it all. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So how is it that you help people? You've come up with a kind of program that empowers people?
Mhm. Yeah, so what I did was, the framework was 8 practices, and before I started coaching, as I was changing, people were noticing it, and so they would say to me, like, what are you doing? Right. And so I started helping other professional women. I was mentoring them for years. And so as I was nearing the sale of my business, and I was like, what's my next life look like? What's act two? And I always wanted to help others. I studied psychology and counseling, but because I came from poverty and I put myself through school, I couldn't afford to get my advanced degree. So my mentees, when I was going through this and having the conversation, like, write a book, write a book. So I decided what I would do is share with people my story, but then show the framework that worked. And of course, now I've named it because, as you're writing a book, people are like, well, what do you call it? So I call it the Aurora Method, and it's 8 practices. And so I'm offering a course. I've changed it from 8 weeks. I should have updated you. I've changed it from 8 to 12 because it's deep and personal, and it's small group work. And what we do together is it's like a hands-on workshop course, like a series of workshops rather than just being like a master class teaching and learning. We work together with identifying how our life experiences shaped us, what traits we developed, right? So we do a self-assessment, but then we gain emotional clarity and we can see what we need to change because we can name it. And then we start building what I call the Life Storm Navigator. Because the whole idea is to really think and do the opposite, but it takes practice. And for women, we don't let other women in. So the idea of how I'm helping others is, one, let's trust each other and work through this. And as we do, let's learn to shift our thinking and let's practice change. And then, from there, so the course is 12 weeks long, and we get to know each other, and, and there's that camaraderie that we have. And I encourage women to pick one partner and make them a life storm buddy so that they can keep practicing the work together. And I'll be offering something soon following that I call the circles, where we get together weekly and we talk about our wins and our struggles, because that's, after all, what we need. We need each other. And the wisdom of women, there's nothing like it, so
I
that's
feel the
what
same
it's all
way.
about.
That's
That's
right.
what it's all about. So that's how I'm helping women. I'm helping them recognize what's keeping them stuck and break through those patterns so that they can, find their voice,
Yep.
express themselves, and yes, you're human. Yes, we're still going to implode or explode, but we have each other now to work through it together and not beat ourselves up and feel so isolated and alone like we do.
Oh, that's really beautiful. So what do you find that they next do? They've become empowered now, and they feel stronger because they've been working through this with you. What do they then do? Do they start a business? What do they feel empowered to do in many
So
cases?
many things. I mean, I'll give you some examples. So some of the women I work with are in their like 40s. And what some of them have done one in particular has made significant, I mean, she had a super high powered job and was building a family, and was torn because her husband's super successful as well. But she grew up believing she had to prove herself and prove her worth. And if she wasn't proving it, she wasn't worthy of what she had. And what she has is so much abundance. And ultimately, what she was torn with was feeling like a failure to her children because she was working so much. So for her, she made a huge decision to work part-time in her profession, which she's luckily able to do, so that she can devote the majority of her time to her family right now. That
Right.
was a huge, it took her a year to get there. And that's the type of support we give to each other. And she got there. And now she's beyond thrilled that she's done it. She just can't believe she did it. And she's so fulfilled. Now, on the flip side, I've worked with other women who were in their late 50s, early 60s, and where they're at is oftentimes in conflict with their families, right? They might have conflict with their daughters or their sons, and they don't have what they want by way of that family fulfillment or professional fulfillment. I'll start with family first. There's one woman that I worked with, and she just had conflict with her daughters, and she was, sadly meddling a lot, right? But as we got through the work, what we got to see was exactly what was driving that for her. And it was fear driven, right? But what she
Mhm.
wasn't seeing was the impact on them. And once she backed off from that, what she got back and plus is incredible relationships with her kids. Like she cannot believe, and her daughters are in their 30s, and she can't believe, what is happening now. And they've become friends and they do activities separately and
Lovely.
together, things that they didn't have before because of the family dynamic. Now, conversely, on the other side of that, professionally, what happens is women have the confidence. So there's a woman I'm working with right now. She has the confidence now. She's going back to school because she wants to be, a medical professional. She's
That's
always been someone
beautiful.
who stayed home to take care of her family, and she didn't feel good enough that she couldn't do it. And so now she's like, I want to be useful in another way. Right. So she's going, I think it's medical assistant, or it's like in the medical field where it's not a long study, but it's something that she can do to make herself feel useful again, because her kids are
Isn't that
growing.
wonderful? That's
Yeah. So,
wonderful.
this is what it does. I mean, when you finally get in touch with yourself and what you want and who you want to be, and you get rid of the I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy of this, then you do it. And even in my own experience, I mean, I went through writing a book. I didn't feel good enough. Like I was like, what are people going to want to learn from me? I'm just an entrepreneur who did well, right? I mean, I was really dismissing myself. But
Yeah.
as I've been talking with women and really bringing to the forefront what I'm doing, it's been absolutely amazing. It was me holding me back and no one else. And that's what the work does. It lets you really see how we hold ourselves back from all the fulfillment that we want in our lives.
Well, I would say that what you're doing is something fantastic because that's exactly what women need
Mhm.
as they're entering the next stage, whatever the next stage is of their lives. They need the empowerment of knowledge, because a lot of them are looking around, they're saying, I'm the only person who's ever been at this stage
Mhm.
of life. They don't know that other women have been precisely there.
Mhm.
And you're giving them the empowerment of knowing that this is normal. Women go through specific stages, and you're showing them what those stages are, number one, and then you're empowering them with the knowledge of what that's like,
Mhm.
what the elements of that stage are, and then what for them in particular might be the best choices for them to consider at that stage, because there are so many choices women can go through, depending. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not unreasonable for someone who has been through college and always wanted, for example, to go to law school.
Mhm.
That's just 3 years.
Mhm.
And if you want to do it faster, you could do it in two.
Exactly.
And what could you do with a law degree? Oh my goodness. There are so many things you could do with a law degree. That's just one example. Somebody else wanted to do something with medicine, but she never quite. Well, there are like 8,428 possible things you can do in medicine, and they don't. a tiny fraction of them have to do with actually operating on people. Most of them have to do with serving. And there's a shortage of people who want to get some kind of extra skill in the medical field and then serve and love people in the medical field. Wow, so many things you could do. I mean, there's so much. And in the caring for children field, wow, there's so much you could do. I mean, it's just so empowering for people to know that the fact that they're 45 or 55 doesn't mean that they don't have to stop dreaming.
Yeah,
That's when you really get to start dreaming with knowledge, with empowerment, and with all the things you had to do already done. So you know what? You can dream for real now.
exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, when you finally get in touch with yourself and what you want and you give yourself permission, that's my favorite term, give yourself permission. And when you give yourself permission, the world is open to you, what, whatever form you want it. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
there's one woman, she's in her 60s. She had a very big career in the pharmaceutical industry and she thought she wanted to do her own business, right? And so she started going in that direction. Then she
Yeah.
realized, you know what? I don't want to do this. And it was okay. And she's volunteering, and she's helping others because she realized that's what I want to do. And so, I think what happens with us is when we recognize our fear, and for her, when she retired, her fear was financial. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend through all my money. I'm not going to have it when I'm in my 80s. And that's why she wanted to start a business. Then she goes through the steps and she actually does it. She does it for a year or two. And then she's like, I don't want to do this. And it's okay. Right. So there's so many things, right?
Everything is okay.
Yes,
That's another thing that your
exactly.
mother never told you.
Right. That it's okay, and she got to her okay, and she looks at me and she's like, oh my gosh, you're doing all these things, but this is what I want to do. I want to be out there. I want to be helping others. And I love meeting people, and I'm traveling now with the book. It's fun. I'm speaking and I'm going places. I'm meeting amazing people. That's what's giving me joy. So as we get to this stage in life, it's like, how do we share our wisdom and what brings us fulfillment and joy? And what the Aurora method does is it removes those blocks to open us up, so that we're not living in that burnout, in that place of, this is my life, life is over. There's nothing I can do. This is my lot, right? I know so many people, we get stuck in the negative and emotionally we're bankrupt, but when we do the Aurora method, it's like our cup is full again. So,
And especially it's full of women who have had experiences, some bad, some good, but they've already had so much in their lives. Some of them have divorced. Some of them have divorced and remarried. It doesn't matter either way. They've had their children. Their children are grown now. And, there's so much. Been there, done that. There's so much of that in their lives. But now they can clear all of that and they can look at, I mean, what did you most want to do? Well, most women, I wanted to do some things for other people, or that's what I want to do now. And there are so many ways women can do that beautifully.
exactly.
And you can give that to them. What a beautiful life you're living now.
I love it. I mean, it's very abundant, and that's to me what it's about. I think when we get to a certain age, it's about that abundance that we feel and that sense of fulfillment and joy that we want to, our bellies full of and our hearts full of. And, that's what the Aurora method does. And for some women who are stuck, and I speak to them, especially, it takes work, but the work is worth it, and basically when you do it and you break free of it, it's the most empowering thing when you're no longer limited by the beliefs that shaped you and that keep you stuck in the place where you're at. And then you're free to be, and
Free
to me,
to
there's
be.
nothing better
Yes.
than being free to be, you
Yeah.
know?
That's a wonderful thing. Are there other women who are counselors, who are teachers, who are also using your method, or have you not gotten to that point yet?
I haven't gotten to that point yet. I have had a lot of interest in women in coaches. They're starting to follow me, and different psychologists have been starting to follow me. Um, I haven't spoken with any of them yet. I had one-on-one with a person, and she's a family psychologist who works with children, and she wants me to actually, not go with her, but because she does like home visits, she wants me to basically speak to the parents when she's doing work. And she's trying to facilitate me to help parents because she works a lot with single moms that are in their 40s, 30s and 40s. And so that's been my only experience so far. But I always say, I launched the book in October. So the fact that, one person noticed is a great thing.
Yeah, you're already getting started on
That's
that.
right. That's right.
Oh, that's very exciting. What do you want people to take away from our conversation today?
Yeah, what I want people to take away is that, you can experience joy and fulfillment and calm no matter what is happening on the outside, because the storm is really inside. And so,
Wow. Wait. Now let's think about that. You can experience joy and calm no matter what's happening on the outside because all that turmoil is really on the inside.
exactly. And when we learn to shift it from the inside out, what happens is we have centeredness and calmness, right? So I'll give an example. I call it the 1 minute reset. So when we understand what's happening inside, so let's say, someone, just your husband or even your boss, whatever it is, says something and you have that churn on the inside, right? All it is you're releasing whatever it is. So for me, oftentimes, I have to release, like sometimes for me, it's like I'll release fear. And I'm releasing fear and I'm breathing in calm and I'm centered and I'm calm and I'm handling it. Right. And so, and what happens is I'll just calmly answer and everything's all is well, all is good. Right. But when I'm not in that place, I don't have joy and fulfillment because I'm getting frustrated and irritated and exhausted over all these external things. But when I can calm it on the inside, I have joy and fulfillment. That's what I've learned. And that's what the Aurora method gives us.
Wow, that's quite beautiful. That's wonderful.
So if anything, if anyone's struggling out there, and you're feeling negative and you're feeling stuck, know that there is a solution, and there's a way out, if you're willing and ready to work for it.
I think we all need to know that we need to work for things.
Mhm.
The question is, how do I work for things in a way that is calm, that isn't struggle, that's positive?
Yeah, the way that you do that is, so what I've learned is like, oh, I always say over here, there's the beliefs that were shaped that give us the positive, right? All those good things. But over here, what happens to us is when we're, I love the word resentment because it means deeply, it means to refeel. It comes from the French word to refeel deeply. So when we have resentment, I always put it out here, someone's doing something out here and it triggers a refeeling, which triggers a belief. Like for me, it would be, I don't belong. And then the cascade, I call it, the reaction cascade starts. And it's all in our head, that city of limitation. And we have all these feelings and we're frustrated and we get irritated. And what I've learned is that those negative beliefs come from over here. And when we learn how to tame them and reset them, we get over to the positive side, and that's what I find. Like we just have to disrupt them. And when we disrupt them enough, we can shift them. And when we shift them, the world of possibility opens.
Okay, so resentments or negative feelings, we need to learn to trust them.
Well, for me, it's not necessarily trusting them. It's recognizing their impact on us, on the inner storm that they create.
Okay.
Because what I find is, let's say you have a situation where someone says or does something. I always talk to professional women. So I'll say, imagine sitting in a meeting, right? And you're in the middle of presenting something, and your good friend who's a colleague is sitting in the room, and all of a sudden she abruptly interrupts you, right?
Okay.
And inside instantly you're like, and she interrupts you and she asks a question, and you're like, I don't know, inside quickly, I don't know how to answer that question. And then next thing you know, you say, how could she humiliate me that way? So, okay, what was the refill? I'm not supported. A lot of women have the belief I'm not supported based on how,
Immediately. Yeah.
right? Okay. What gets triggered next? This is the reaction cascade. So that refill of I'm not of an event that happened that led you to believe I'm not supported gets triggered. All of a sudden, fear. And I love Tony Robbins' work. He has 3 fears: loss, fear of losing what we have, less, fear of being less than or getting less than we desire, or never, fear of never getting what we want. And we go into the negative loop now because fear gets triggered. And what do you say? I'm never going to get that. I'm never going to get that promotion. And then what does the outside world start to see? Well, we go in 2 places when we go to self-centered, in the city of limitation of self-centeredness. One could be we go to validation, right? We go to self-seeking, where we're coming out of that meeting and asking people, did you think I handled her okay? Or can you believe she humiliated me like that? And people are sort of like, I didn't think she humiliated you. She only asked a question. And you want validation. You're going to keep pressing till you get it. And you don't realize that you're actually pushing people away. Then
Yeah.
over here, someone like me, because I worked so hard to become who I was stuck in self-importance. Like, I have accomplished all this. How dare you question me? And I would answer with a dismissive tone that I couldn't even hear. Okay. And then people would be like, gosh, why are you so dismissive? She only asked you a question. And I couldn't understand how I was limiting myself. Right. So a resentment,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So a resentment is a refeeling of an old wound that runs us. And I always do this. It runs this cascade from our belief down to our toes, which is our fear, back through in between our ears, and it keeps us stuck inside. And when we learn to break through that, so when we recognize how resentment basically drives us, and we see what it does and how it keeps us apart, or it keeps us in a place of pushing others away, we can shift
Yeah.
that. We can disrupt that. So what might feel impossible, many of us feel like, oh, it's impossible. I'm never going to be able to change this. What might feel impossible becomes possible because we learn how to reset it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this helps us to know ourselves too, because when we get stressed in these situations, that there's a deeper understanding of ourselves waiting to be discovered there.
Exactly.
And some people don't want to know ourselves better. Some people would rather not
Exactly.
discover that new element of ourselves. But what's exciting about discovering it is that then you learn to better deal with it. You learn that it's not really negative. It's just something to deal with.
Exactly. That's all it is. It's just
And
something to disrupt and reset. And when we
yeah,
do it, then we're walking through life, like I said, filled with
yep,
joy and fulfillment, because we're not stuck in that negative loop of no one ever this or no one ever that, or I'm never gonna that, or
yeah, exactly. I
right?
mean,
And think of the negative.
precisely. Each of those things we learn about ourselves is a challenge which we can get past. We can
Ex-
learn how to deal with it. We can learn how sometimes it's actually wonderful when we look at it a slightly different way. And ultimately it can empower us. Each of those things can empower us.
Exactly. Exactly. In some cases, it's something we can do. In other cases, it's something we refrain from doing. Right? Because many
Yes.
of us want to control and really, like, be in charge of the outcome. And when we learn, wait, I like Mel Robbins' work with the let them theory, right? So it's let them, let me. But for me personally, I didn't know how to let them, and I didn't know how to let me. But when I put this framework together, I understood what letting someone do their, doing something, and I'm not responsible for the outcome meant. And a lot of us, especially as we get older, we have wisdom and we just wish they would do what we said. And when
Yeah.
they don't, we get so upset, but we can let them. We don't have to get involved with it and let us just be in that moment. And we can quietly and lovingly watch and lovingly disconnect and not really be, like invested in outcomes that upset us, So to me, that's as I've gotten older, those are the things I've had to learn and living with less frustration and less negativity, like it's just game changing when I feel like it's even good for our bodies when we're living in
Yes,
a positive
it's
space.
empowering. It does
Yeah,
not have to be weakening. It can be strengthening. It doesn't have to be something that makes you feel smaller. It can make you feel stronger because you can learn
exactly.
from it. Someone asked you a question that you didn't know how to answer. You can say, thoughtfully. You can say, oh, thank you. What an interesting question. I've never
Exactly.
looked at it that way before. Let's look at it
Exactly.
together. I mean, you can use it as an empowering moment, not as a weakening moment at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have one woman I'm coaching right now, and she was telling me, she got her job. She's in her 50s, and her job wanted to elevate her. And she's like, I've always wanted to be behind the scenes. I don't want to do this anymore. And they asked her to present to the CEO of the company. And she thought her negative thinking immediately went to, I have to justify my job and prove my worth. And then she realized from the work, she's like, no, they just want me to present strategy and present my ideas. And she
Yeah,
walked into that with confidence rather than, I have to prove myself, that they're making me prove my worth. And that wasn't it at all. They admire her, they love her experience, they want to elevate her. They love her ideas, right? But she had, her little negative loop and she worked right through it and was like, I got past that and I'm thrilled. And she's, going for it. So,
yeah,
and
go
then,
for it.
right. And I mean, and I think a lot of us, especially when you're in your 50s, you start worrying, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. Right. But meanwhile, so many people value what we have to offer. And that's
Yes,
again what this type of work does for you.
yeah. Oh, my dear. I think we have come, we started at, I'm not sure what time, but I think we've run over our time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, no, not at all. I've
Yeah.
so enjoyed this. It's sort of a somewhat flexible time anyway. So wasn't that lovely? Oh, my dears. What's wonderful in cases like this, and there are not many cases like this, but when someone has a difficult first part of their lives and they overcome it, and then they learn how to teach everyone else to overcome it, that is a beautiful, beautiful story. And it can lead to wonderful stories in other people's lives as well, because that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. My goodness, Tracy, what a story. All right. This has been Seek Reality, of course, with Roberta Grimes. I'm very glad you could be with us today because please never forget that you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. And when you get all the implications of that fact, it changes everything in your life as it remains for the better. Our guest next week is a wonderful old friend of ours, Carolyn Molnar. She'll be with us for the seventh time, and Carolyn is a very, very good psychic medium who's based in Toronto, Canada, and she has had more than 30 years experience in this field. She has a list of faithful clients. It's worldwide. Carolyn is highlighted in the books Psychics and Mediums in Canada and Medium 7, Evidence of the Afterlife and Predictions. She's been profiled in at least 3 national Canadian newspapers, the Toronto Star, the National Post, and the Globe and Mail. She also wrote, produced, and directed a one-woman play called What? You're a Medium? At the 2016 Toronto Fringe Theatre Festival. I love that. And readers in the North York Mirror newspaper voted her their favorite psychic 2 years in a row. And of course, this week our guest has been Tracy Doyle. I've just met Tracy, but I think she's simply delightful. Tracy is a nationally recognized entrepreneur, emotional wellness advocate, and author of Life Storms, Finding Your Clear Sky. Her journey from a childhood that was shaped by really pretty amazing trauma and instability to becoming an award-winning business leader and resilience coach, is a testament to the power of reinvention and healing. And we're going to have her back again because I want to talk with her further about how she teaches people and what they learn from her. I think that she can now spend her life empowering other women, which is the most ennobling thing I can think that anyone can do. We also should just mention here that our dear friend Craig Hogan is the president and guru of Seek Reality Online, which is your one-stop resource for all things afterlife. Just go to seekreality.com and Craig will help you to understand that your life, believe it or not, no way to actually get around this fact, your life is forever. And now, of course, we have no more than to do. We can't talk. In fact, one of our dear recent guests has said, look, you never have time to talk about your own books, so let me read them and then I'll help you talk about your books. So I think we might do that. But meanwhile, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy, please make the most of this coming week in our one reality, always knowing that you are a powerful, eternal being, and you, most of all in this entire universe, you are infinitely, eternally, and perfectly loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.